This is my mom's Bible. After she died, I got this Bible, and it's probably the most precious thing I own. It's full of her writing. But in that, I found a note in there. I felt desperate to lose weight. I hated everything about myself. I asked a friend of mine who had been losing a lot of weight, "Hey, how are you doing that?" I felt like if I could fix the outside, that the inside would be fixed as well. 8.5 years later, I found myself, almost dead. In the beginning of using, the girl that I bought from lived in a high-rise condo in Turtle Creek. So it almost felt okay, like, well, this is fancy. I'm not going to the depths for drugs. The deeper you get into addiction, the people that are more higher class drug dealer, they don't want to deal with desperate people. 4 or 5 months before I actually quit, I was very ill at that point. I found myself in this house that was just a shack. It was dark and no lights, and they actually made meth. They cooked it there. I remember sitting on the couch. I was waiting for them to come and bring it to me. A little child walked around the corner in a diaper, maybe 1 or 2. I remember seeing it and thinking, this is not right. I'd been sleeping a lot, like for days. I was at my parents' house at this time. And I remember I woke up, oh my gosh, it's been 2 weeks since I've used any kind of drugs. And I just asked God, God, help me. Out loud, God, help me. Then the journey began. That day changed everything. My mom and dad began to really pour into me. Like, they were doing a lot of tough love. What they said, one thing that I'll never forget, is the phrase, "Don't let your suffering go to waste." I went to a pretty large church in Dallas that I grew up in. Our pastor said, "Would you like to share your story?" And I was like, oh, wow, I don't know. I cried through the entire thing, but the Lord was like, this is your story. You can't mess it up. How did you get out of it? Start telling people. Almost immediately after that, my parents were getting phone calls like, "Hey, I've got a daughter. Would Casey be willing to talk to her?" God was just dropping people into our laps. If you take all your suffering and it's a quiet, dark secret that you never share with anyone, then how can you let people know the only hope, which is Jesus? When you look out at a crowd of people, out of 100 people, there may be 10 people that have dealt with addiction. So what are the other people there for? Maybe they are dealing with incredible anger. Maybe they're dealing with a lot of hurt from their past. Maybe they're bitter. Maybe they have a problem with gossip. All those things can take you and just keep you bound up, and Satan will use those things to derail you. Being a bitter woman can be just as deadly as a drug addiction. When you think you've gone so far that you can't get back, there's too much shame, that's just not true. That's Satan telling you that. With God, all things are possible. He can take you right where you are, doesn't matter your past, anything that you've been through, what you've done, and he can pull you up out of the pit, break chains, set you firmly on your feet. I believe wholeheartedly in what my mother has told me. Don't let your suffering go to waste. The whole passage is Hebrews 11:32-34. On the note, in her handwriting, "Casey, this is your verse." And there's a piece in there that says, "Whose weakness was turned to strength." I found that after she died, this note. It means everything to me. I get so much from reading this. I feel so connected to her, but this right here, "Whose weakness was turned to strength." If I ever get a tattoo, I think it'll have this on it, but I'm too scared of tattoos.